Hey folks, welcome back. This is Mark Devine with the Unbeatable Mind podcast. I am here at SealFit headquarters with Brent Gleeson. Before I get started with Brent, and of course I'll give him a more proper intro. Good to see you, Brent.
Good to see you.
We are having our final SealFit Academy of 2017 on October 13th. Is that right, Jeff? It's on October 13th. And this is an incredible event. It's 3 days. It's the full download of the SealFit and the Unbeatable Mind training methods and philosophy. It's an incredible event, and you're not going to want to miss this. So if you're looking to do it, this is your last chance until April of 2018. Check out our website, sealfit.com/events for all the info. And I hope to see you there. It's one of my favorite events. I spend at least 15 hours personally coaching that event, and we have a blast. One other quick announcement. We are leaving SealFit headquarters. I mean, we literally have been run out of town.
But
But
been here a long time.
we've been here for 10 years,
Yeah.
and this has been an incredible place. I mean, we get visitors from all over the world to come, and it's very exciting for them. This is the epicenter, but we're leaving. So we're kind of like a little bit having like a bittersweet party around here. You know
What's
what
the
I
new
mean?
destination?
We're going to move to Carlsbad,
Okay.
but
How far?
we're not going to have a gym. I mean, we will have a gym, but it won't be a membership gym.
Sure.
So we're giving up the CrossFit. Our CrossFit members are all sad. And we're going to have like a studio gym where we'll be able to film and we'll be able to serve the community better around the world.
Right.
And we won't be as distracted running a retail operation in a
Well, I was
training
going to say,
center.
won't that open up opportunity to focus on that core business,
Right.
that's related to some of the other things you do as
Yeah.
opposed to being sort of
Well, that's
disjointed and
what I think.
distracted.
But
Yeah.
it's also a transition of our culture from kind of like a casual gym-based culture,
Yeah.
early days of SealFit to trying to grow a real
a
company.
little more corporate. Yeah.
Right, a little corporate feel.
It's a good problem.
It's a good problem to have, but it is bittersweet. And it's really for me. My playground
Yeah.
is going away.
Yeah.
That's really
I know,
what we're
you
talking about
probably love
here.
this place more than anybody. Is that-
I love this place. Like I just walk out and do burpees. I mean, it's like heaven.
I remember probably about 8 years ago or 6 years ago, came by for a quick meeting about the website.
Yeah, let's talk
You
about
put us through the most horrendous. I just came for a meeting.
It was horrific.
I was
In fact,
puking in the
I
corner.
was thinking about the other day. I was like, oh yeah, Brent. I'm really excited to see Brent again. Then I was remembering that we did this crazy back squat workout with
100 body weight squats followed by pull-ups.
every minute on the
every
minute. We had 5 pull-ups or something. And who was your partner at the time?
My our COO. Well, Brandon was there, and then our partner, or our COO, this guy Miles, who's super fit.
Right.
crushed
Miles was the only one who did the
He
workout.
sat down. And I was like, "Oh, bro, you're quitting already?" He's like, "No, I'm done."
That was awesome. The rest of us,
As I was stifling
I don't
vomit.
think we finished.
Then we went on like a 4-mile run afterwards.
That was awesome. That was the early days.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, as I said, Brent Gleeson, a friend of mine, former SEAL team guy, entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur, and author now, a speaker and author. So we're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about the teams. We're going to talk about whatever the heck comes to our minds. So
Sounds good.
welcome, man. Thanks
Yeah,
very
good
much.
to see you,
It's
brother.
been
Yeah.
6 years since
Something
we saw
like
each other.
that. Seems like a couple months, but time's flying.
So our audience is SealFit Unbeatable Mind Tribe,
Right.
and so we like to keep the conversation around things that are motivating, performance, mental toughness, resiliency, leadership, all those things. We veer, we stay clear of politics and war, and I don't like tell war stories and stuff like that. So. Although politics would be kind of fun to talk about right now.
gonna say.
It's getting like a reality
Especially if we're
TV
going to talk about leadership. But
I know,
we'll
exactly.
Stay away
Right.
from that.
We'll steer
We'll
clear
talk
of
about it in a
that.
different context.
Right, exactly. So, Brent, tell us about your kind of formative years. I kind
Sure.
of like to start there. Your formative year. Where are you from, and what were some of your early influences, and what kind of led you to the SEAL team path?
It's actually kind of a funny story that sometimes I'll allude to in keynote presentations, as people are interested in always
Yeah.
your journey from
How'd you
the
get
civilian
from
world into the
there to
SEAL
here?
community. I grew up in Dallas, did my undergrad at Southern Methodist University,
Okay.
degrees in finance and economics. And so obviously the path was going to be into corporate America.
Just like me.
Yeah, exactly. So I took a job as a financial analyst with a large investment firm.
Okay.
And simultaneously, I also had one of my roommates who graduated. His path was into the Navy, so we went to OCS, Naval Intelligence. He's had a phenomenal career in human intelligence. He's now the youngest director of the Counterterrorism Ops Center that we've ever had.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Cool.
I know, and I know
Right
all
on.
his dark, dirty secrets. I can't believe we're running that show, but
Yeah, right.
that's another story. But I also had another fraternity brother of mine, actually a year behind me, and he was on the path. This was just before 9/11, so keep in mind this was
Okay.
peacetime,
Right.
different mindset, since we're going to be talking about mindset and mindset transformation. So he was a senior. I was working in finance. So I had played rugby in college, and I was a swimmer in high school. So I obviously wanted to find a way to stay fit while I was working. And so we started training together, helping him prepare, strength training, running.
He wanted to be a SEAL?
Sorry.
Okay.
He was going to graduate, join the Navy, and attempt to make it to the buds.
Right.
And so we started training together. We started running marathons and swimming every weekend and every week, every night. I'd get home at 7 o'clock from my finance job and grab a backpack with fins, run 4 miles to SMU, swim in the pool for an hour, run 4 miles home. We did this every night. Ran 10 to 20 miles on the weekends. But at the same time, this was to prepare him, not to transition me out of my finance job. But I also started becoming, through all of our dialogue and our time spent together and books he would recommend, started becoming very fascinated with SEAL history, SEAL culture, what it means to be part of that type of...
Do you have anyone in your family in the military?
My dad was in the Marine Corps during the reserves. Or he was in the reserves during Vietnam.
Got it.
Never deployed downrange, but nor has he ever been the type of person that says, you should join the military.
Right.
If anything, probably even more like he was happy that I got a job and had a job and didn't have to pay for
My
me.
parents were very similar. Right. They're like, my dad went to the Army for 2 years, 11th Airborne, which was disbanded because they were like a ragtag band of misfits.
Yeah.
And, but it was because he had a judge that said, you could go to the Army or go to the jail. And he goes, I'll opt for A.
Pretty easy option there. Smart move.
Right, smart move. Yeah.
And so we started training together. I started reading every book I could find, mostly, even the Dick Marcinko books, but also the, Ghost of Green Faces and other the Vietnam era books. And obviously started becoming gradually more fascinated with the culture, the mindset, that high performance team, anatomy, so to speak.
Nice.
And so that coupled with the fact that I was really bored at my entry-level financial analyst position.
I wonder
as
why.
You can imagine
that.
Over time, that mindset shift was, this is something I need.
So was it that you got interested in the military, or that you began to look at yourself and say, hey, this is something I can actually do?
It wasn't the military in general. This was the SEAL teams.
Yeah, same thing with me.
I became fascinated.
It was the only thing on my list.
Yeah,
it wasn't like, if I don't make it in the SEALs, I'll go in the Marine Corps. No, it was just like, if I don't do that, I'll either die because they killed me in training, or I guess something else.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't want to look at that. What else?
I wanted to choose the most elite path that the military had to offer, and my buddy was going in. And it's kind of cool to have a swim buddy going in, and so we started training heavily together. And then one day I just flipped the switch, quit my job. My buddy and I moved up to Crested Butte, Colorado, where we trained for an additional 4 months for about 5 hours a day at 10,000 feet altitude, and then joined the Navy. And we both went through. We actually
you both enlisted. And
we enlisted, we had our officer packages ready to go, and eventually, we said, you know what, screw it. Yeah. Let's enlist. Faster path to buds.
And this was still pre 9/11.
This is pre 9/11, and this is also back when you had to choose a rate. So I chose the shortest A school that was in San Diego, which was sonar technician.
Not good for you.
It was 4 weeks. I slept through the whole thing and was honor man. So it shows you the rigors of that course.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little scary. And so literally a couple months into being in the Navy, I was checked into buds.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty rare. Usually it takes a little bit longer. But that's because of the A school.
That was by design and the path that I wanted.
Yeah, and nowadays Buds Prep can really stall people if
we didn't have formal Buds Prep back then. There was some informal things at boot camp, but there wasn't the formal Buds Prep.
Right. So what class were you in? What year?
235.
235.
Yeah. So it was an interesting journey because we learned very early on about the pain of loss and sacrifice, and what it was going to. It was almost foreshadowing to the post 9/11 reality we live in, but. Our class leader, John Scott, actually died during Hell Week.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Was he the one who died of a heart attack, or was it?
Yeah, it was Thursday night of Hell Week. We were doing caterpillar races in the pool. And for those who don't know what caterpillar races are, it's not as cheeky and fun as it sounds. It's you and your 5 or 6 person boat crew are swimming on your backs with your legs wrapped around each other's waists.
Right.
So even fresh, that's a hard exercise to execute successfully.
And this is Thursday of Hell Week.
This is Thursday of Hell Week. So that wasn't what happened, but I believe he had a pre-existing heart condition that somehow didn't pop when screening medically. So long story short, and sparing details, his heart, he had a massive heart failure.
In the pool?
Drowned in the pool.
Oh, good God.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was interesting because when they were.
Did they call training, or did they just basically pull them out and training? Continue on?
We were over at NAB, Naval Amphibious Base. They brought us back across the street. We put us in the classroom for a couple hours while obviously we knew something was bad. We didn't at that time did not know he had passed. So a couple hours went by, and we were approaching Friday morning, and they came in and pronounced him dead. Put Lieutenant Parado in charge. Wow. It was a very short conversation, very candid, and then they called training.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, which was kind of not to lighten the mood a little bit.
Bittersweet ending in itself.
It was a bittersweet moment because we were not formally secured on the Friday afternoon, so the instructors beat the hell out of us.
I'm sure
for the rest of first phase.
You owe us. I'm sure.
Yeah, you owe us a day.
You owe us a day.
And so they took the next 6 weeks to
pay off that
day.
No kidding. How many guys in your class? What were the stats?
We started with a little over 200. 23 of the original graduated. Okay. We had a couple filter in during SQT, but 23 of the original.
Okay. Yeah. What year was that?
That was 2000.
2000. Okay.
Yeah.
So then 9/11 happens. Where were you at serving when 9/11 happened?
Well, I was literally, I had a week downtime between BUDS and SQT.
Right.
So I was visiting a buddy up at UCLA, and we woke up Saturday morning or whatever day of the week it was.
I don't remember. Yeah.
And it was all over the news, and went back. We checked in, a little bit early.
You still did SQT though, right?
They did not accelerate, training by any means. We had already.
And back then, SQT was at the team level, not at BUDS. Nowadays, is at BUDS.
No,
it was at BUDS
yeah,
then?
but not consolidated the way it is now.
Okay.
You still graduated from BUDS.
Got your Trident.
Then
you went to SQT.
Then you go to SQT.
I see.
Excuse me, no, you graduated from BUDS. You go to SQT, but we didn't do free fall school back then.
I see. Yeah.
But it was like it is now. But we were actually another double-edged sword, bittersweet moment. We were the very first class to get our Tridents when graduating from SQT.
I see.
Literally, the class before us, you get it at the team after doing your board.
Right. That's what happened with me. So I graduated BUDS, went to SEAL Team 3. Yeah. When they had enough of us, they classed up in what they called STT, SEAL Tactical Training. We went through that. Then we went back to the team. Right. And 6 months later, we had a board.
Right.
And we had the PQS. I mean, it was a nightmare.
I'm so glad I didn't have to do that. We were like,
you guys had it
but
easy.
The problem was we showed up with our Tridents.
Yeah,
so
that's true. That's the problem.
Let's just say the guys that were there before us weren't too keen on that.
I'm sure they were not. That's
not that hazing. But
so what team were you at then?
Team 5.
Oh, you were Team 5. Yeah. Okay.
And so
rough and tumble Team 5.
Well, we can get into this later, but since we're talking about unbeatable mind, but from my perception, one of the people I admire the most from that unbeatable mindset is David Goggins, who was in my class.
He was at 5.
And we went to 5 together.
Okay. Yeah, Goggins is insane.
We were in the same boat crew.
Talk about a focus. I always I've actually never met Goggins. I'm surprised our paths haven't crossed. Yeah. We need to get him on this podcast.
You do. He's a fascinating individual.
Yeah, he just doesn't experience pain the way other people do, or he was able to shut it off really early and just keep moving.
He's not a people person per se, and he'll tell you that.
Right.
He's so once he puts his mind to something, nothing and nobody will deter him from achieving that goal.
Right.
Like breaking the world pull-up record on the Today Show.
I was just going to say that's where, to do pull-ups for 24 hours straight. Is that what it was? And how many do 14,000 or
something like that? Well, he tore all the ligaments in his right arm the first time around, and then healed, came back literally 2 months later and broke the record.
Oh, no kidding.
So yeah,
I didn't know that.
Well, he still did hundreds of pull-ups after tearing all the ligaments in his arm. But do you know his story? I don't know if you want to get off on this tangent.
I don't know.
Do you know his story from
he was
how
overweight, right, or something before he got
his entire story is pretty fascinating. Since we're
let's talk about
the
David.
Unbeatable mind, not just some average white guy Joe like me. But he was in the Air Force, I think an attack P or combat controller. But he had been a football player. He's a big dude. He was about 240 pounds. Yeah. He went to the detailer. Was like, hey, I want to do a lat transfer to the Navy to go to BUDS. And they're like, roger that, but just.
He was an enlisted guy or an officer?
Enlisted.
Okay.
And but they gave him some advice. You're pretty big. You might want to lean down significantly. So he said, roger that. Came back literally 2 months later, I think 35 or 40 pounds lighter.
Wow.
And super fit. Not unhealthily light. He didn't just starve himself, but he lost all that weight. He did a lat transfer and then filtered into my BUDS class. And so we went through BUDS, He was in my boat crew in Hell Week, which was a fascinating experience. A good motivator, almost too good. And then we went to 5, and then we all went through our workups, and we deployed to Iraq. He deployed, I think, to PACOM. Then we all came back, and during professional development, ProDev, he opted to go to Ranger School. So I don't remember what the process is for doing those types of cross trainings, but he went to Ranger School, came back 20 pounds even lighter. And I don't know what they do to people at Ranger School, but he also now wanted to be an ultra-marathon runner. In addition, because being a SEAL wasn't enough.
It's not enough.
It's not enough. So this David's unbeatable mind sits down at his laptop, and what does he do? He starts at the top. He Googles hardest ultra-marathons in the world.
Right. Was
So,
it the Badlands?
The Badwater comes up.
The Badwater,
It's a 135-mile race through Death Valley.
Right, to the top of Mount Whitney.
Yeah. Not fun. And so he calls him up.
That was his first race.
Well, no, it's so he calls him up and he says, I want to sign up. There's a race coming in 6 months. They're like, who are you? Like the world's most elite marathon runners do this race.
Right.
And he's like, well, David Goggins, team guy. They're like, okay, David Goggins, what was your last time on 100? He's like, well, I've never run a marathon before. They're like, you've never run a marathon and you want to sign up for the Badwater. So more or less, he got laughed off the phone. He said, gave him the requirements. You need to do, 2 qualifying times and 2 ultras. And those qualifying times then can possibly get you into this race or one of our races. So ironically, 2 days later, there was a race called the San Diego 24. It's a 24-hour run, around a 1-mile loop.
No way.
And I think the goal is to run, 100 miles in a certain amount of time within that 24 hours. And so 2 days later, 0 training, he goes and he runs it at about, I think, mile 75. He was experiencing massive kidney failure. He'd fractured most of the bones in his feet. So he quit. No, I'm kidding. So his wife told him to quit. He did not. He said, no, screw that.
Broken bones.
Then he basically ran another marathon, finished, and then went straight to the hospital.
Wow.
And he was very serious stuff going on. But he, that time qualified him to get into the Hurt, which is in Hawaii, another horrendous ultramarathon that's on a trail, and you gain and lose thousands of feet of altitude through that run.
No kidding.
So he did the Hurt, did very well, was pissed that he didn't win. So now he's a 2-time ultra guy against, the world's most elite runners, like 300 or 400 of them. And those times qualified him for the Badwater, and that's
incredible.
That's the story, and he's been doing it ever since. And it's really cool because a lot of what he does is to raise awareness for the various SEAL foundations and raising money.
No, he's not on active duty anymore, is he?
No,
he's not. Do you keep in touch with him?
Yeah. I was just talking to him the other day.
We're gonna do a podcast with him too.
Oh yeah.
So he's a great example of a team guy with an unbeatable mind.
Yes.
No, I would say most team guys have that kind of mindset. You need that to get through buds, unless they kind of lose it, right?
Yeah.
That's possible. I've seen that happen. So you were at Team 5. You went to Iraq. Where'd you serve over there? What time frame?
We were actually the first task unit from any of the teams to go in spring of 03. So we went over there March 03, literally right after the city fell, and so we were the first SEALs really doing the initial capture or kill, DA types of raids over there. We were working closely with our agency partners.
Were you staging out of Baghdad, or
we were out of one of the palaces near the Baghdad airport. We had within the palace grounds, we had a compound. It was called Camp Ginny Posey.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. And so that was we were the first people to set that camp up and operate it out of there. The op tempo back then was super high, literally just doing DAs. And
so you're going after the deck of cards?
Deck of cards, blacklist, whoever our agency partners would bring to us. A lot of it, of course, was from ground intelligence, last-minute ground intelligence.
And this is at a period before we even thought about the insurgency. So this was still
pre-insurgency,
post-invasion kind of cleanup,
yes.
Pre-insurgency.
Yes.
So the IED threat hadn't really ramped up yet.
It was during that deployment it started to. And
okay.
I remember that because we were initially using vehicles as insert platforms because a lot of the times our targets were anywhere from 5 minutes to 45 minutes away.
Right.
In and around.
You didn't
Baghdad,
have hardened
Ramadi,
Humvees
Fallujah.
at the time?
No, we actually intentionally unhardened them. We took the doors off.
No
they
shit.
weren't up armored. We took the roofs off and that was our way to adapt to our surrounding conditions. It was too difficult getting in and out with all that gear, and using vehicles as insert platforms. We'd roll up to a house, jump off with ladders,
Yeah,
jump
most
over the
people,
wall.
most people
was,
listening wouldn't know that up until then,
yeah,
SEALs really didn't use vehicles for insertion and
correct.
extraction. We walked or used boats or submarines or helicopters.
It was the newest form
airplanes.
of our existence in an urban environment.
Right. Now, we did have the fast attack vehicles, right, which were as Team 3, and then they kind of, carved them out for all the West Coast. So the FAVs were in the first Gulf War.
Yeah.
And did they? I think they brought the FAVs over there. They were pretty useless at that point.
We used
for
them
for the invasion, right? But that was it.
Yeah, they weren't that helpful then. We actually used them on our very first mission. Literally, it's kind of funny because we weren't even in Iraq yet, where we got tasked with our first DA. So we were still staged at Ali Salim Air Base in Kuwait, and intel came down that retreating Iraqi forces had taken control of the Mercurian Dam, if I'm saying that correctly. It was a big hydroelectric power plant and dam in central Iraq. And so
was this when was Harwood running the show over there, or who was the JSOC commander?
Well, I'm Harwood, I believe.
I think it was Harwood.
Jamie Cartwright, our CO, was running the show for us.
For you guys,
yeah. Or XO, excuse me. And so intelligence said that the forces that had taken over the dam were going to destroy the dam, blow the dam, causing mass power, electrical outages, flooding the areas below, kind of trying to slow the American advance through that area. Right. And so we were tasked with the mission to fly all the way up there in CH-47 helicopters in conjunction with the Polish GROM, the Polish elite special ops units. They were going to be acting as a blocking force and also hitting some of the smaller structures around the hydroelectric power plant. My platoon was acting as the primary assault force, literally fast roping right onto the X.
Cool.
And so that was our very first.
That's your first op, huh?
Yeah. All of us, none of us had been to any type of combat before because it's been peacetime.
It was all new, yeah.
Point, so. Yeah.
How was that? How was that experience?
We used those
for
vehicles. Our mobility team used those just for patrolling.
How did that op go for your first combat op? How did that go?
It was a relatively soft target, so it went basically seamlessly. We took control of it as per the mission profile. We also held the target for 3 days until conventional forces arrived. But it was smooth. It was well executed, but it was also, in a way, it was good.
Did you meet resistance or not?
A little bit, but not much. The resistance lasted for about 2 seconds.
Right.
Screw that. This is not good.
These guys look like they knew what they're doing.
Point your AK, throw it away.
Right.
That kind of thing. So it was, it was smooth.
Interesting.
Later missions on that deployment were different.
Yeah. No, this just popped in my head. It's a little bit of a deviation, so we'll come back to your story. But when I was over in Baghdad, the GROM was, of course, there, and they had women on their team. Did you work alongside women in that GROM?
I knew that they did, and they used them like some of our tier 1 assets do, but we were just working with some of their.
Okay. Now, what do you think about the, women making it through SEAL training? Because
Well,
it's
I
kind of
guess-
in the news recently. Because they had
It's
the
been
one,
in the
the
news
one
recently.
girl
I've been
recently dropped
I've been
out.
asked to comment on it, which I've declined to comment, but not because of, of my perception of
You
it.
mean
I know
publicly on TV or something like that?
What's
or?
that?
You mean publicly on?
Yeah, I've just I've done some news stuff for other things before, so if your name's in there, that might.
It's a hot potato for the community. So.
Yeah, hence me not commenting.
I haven't commented on it
public
publicly
capacity.
either. I mean, I just think it's a fascinating subject, but the official line is, of course, welcome them, but the standards won't drop, and we hope that there'll be some, some teammates, female teammates.
Well, just like the GROM or our tier 1 assets do. I mean, they're a valuable asset to the community, depending on whatever capacity.
Well, they already are. A lot of people don't realize that. There's
Right.
there's tons of women in the SEAL teams. They're just not Navy SEALs.
Right.
They're intel, they're admin, they're communications, whatever.
Right.
EOD even, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they do a valuable job. That's for sure. Okay, so that was did you do another mission or another tour after that combat mission?
Yeah, another one in Iraq and then one in Africa.
Okay.
And then,
So you had 3 rotations together, altogether. Yeah. And why did you get out?
So it's 2 things, and I'll preface this by saying I think we always do. We always regret, leaving the brotherhood, leaving the teams.
Sure.
I serve in different capacity now. Let me back up. My plan had never been to be a career SEAL. I wanted to kind of see how it went. Keep in mind it was peacetime when I went in, and it's pretty busy, when I was in. And obviously, if we had a crystal ball, I mean, none of us could even fathom how long these conflicts could have possibly gone on.
Still going on.
Any given day, you could have asked anybody back then saying this is going to end in a second.
Can you
That's why
believe
we wanted to deploy so quickly.
2001, and we're heading into 2018, and
It's
there's no
unbelievable.
sign of any.
I remember back then because it was that focused sense of urgency, like we got to deploy because this is all going to be over soon.
Right.
Well, here we are.
Well, the first Gulf, that happened to me in the first Gulf War.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, we're jocking up, we're getting ready to go, and we were literally packing our pellets, And then they said, sorry, it's
Right,
over. We're like,
right.
shucks.
That's what,
Yeah.
that was our mindset back then too. But so I wanted to stick to my plan, go to grad school, get back into business. Wasn't sure in what capacity that was going to be. I figured I would go back into finance. But, I continue to serve. I'm on the executive board of the Seal Family Foundation.
You didn't stay in the reserves.
No. It's funny because most of the guys that got out around the time I did who did stay in the reserves were back in a platoon inside 6 months.
Right. Yeah, they got sucked back in,
But I'm on the board of the Seal Family Foundation, so I've helped raise millions of dollars for the families over the past 5 years, and I mentor guys into the program. So that's my
It's your
continued
give back.
service and
Sure.
how I give back. But yeah, I wanted to go back into business, and so I went
So
to
you went to USD, right, for
Yes.
your MBA?
Yeah.
Did you do the MBA
it
there,
was
or
a-
an MSEL, or
It was a combined program for MBA and MSRE, which is a Master
Real
of
estate.
Science in Real Estate. It was a new program
Now,
because
finally-
I also wanted to. My finance focus after undergrad was in real estate finance investment. So I and my dad's been in real estate.
didn't you launch New Condos Online out of business school, or come up with the concept while you were there?
So we initially I thought maybe I wanted to be a real estate developer, and then we started seeing, potential murmurings of an economic collapse that we were in a bubble. We're not in a bubble.
This is when?
This is going
Around
to keep going.
2006, 2007?
2007, and even our economics professor was just like, no, we're going to double dip recession. This is all going to end soon. And us young, excited entrepreneurs were like, oh, whatever. but that being said, I learned so much about real estate development during some of that program that I felt that wasn't a fit for me. So we went the technology route and built basically an early version of Trulia, Zillow, Homes.com, those types of sites. So
Specifically for condos, new condos, right?
attached housing, condos,
Attached housing,
townhomes,
I see.
all over the world.
All right. And so you launched it. How did that first entrepreneurial endeavor go?
Great. It that back then we were faking it till we make it. We didn't know what we didn't know.
I'm still doing that.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Same here. We'll get into all that later, but I'm just doing it in a different capacity now.
Right.
But yeah, we went out and we raised friends and family around the money, just like $20,000 to build the site and get some momentum. It was just 3 of us, so we were wearing every possible entrepreneurial hat you
The
can
other
imagine.
guys, students here, fellow students?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very cliche, I know.
That's
The
pretty
meet
cool.
and grad
It's
school
the
thing.
way it goes.
Yeah, and then we got some momentum, developed some sales, and we did a Series A round of about $1 million through angel capital, and then financed the business that way.
Yeah.
And
So was it focused on buyers or renters?
It was basically a lead generation search engine, just like a Trulia or a
Okay.
Zillow
Yeah.
or a Homes.com. So our clients were real estate developers, home builders, or the marketing media firms that represent them that are buying.
Yeah.
ads.
So people would come search what's available in their area and
Right.
they'd put in their
So our
email or-
users are people looking for a home. Our
right.
clients were people selling homes.
Okay. Easy day.
So, and it was easy day. We were back then before the crash. I mean, we were
Technology,
in a bubble.
Technology wasn't easy back then. I mean, you probably
Technology
spent a
wasn't
lot.
easy, but the market was easy because people were throwing all kinds of marketing dollars at real estate.
Right.
It didn't matter what it was. I couldn't believe we even got our first clients. The website was just atrocious.
Yeah.
But I look back on it now. You're always going to think that in your first stab at something like that.
Interesting.
And then then the economy crashed. And we started seeing the near future of what was the severity of what was going to happen. And
Right.
usually in any type of economic downturn, especially in the housing market, the first budget to be cut is going to be marketing, which is actually totally the wrong strategy. People who survive through downturns are
Right.
ones who
They
invest.
double down,
They
right.
double down. And that's why a lot of home builders are out of business. A lot of the buildings got taken back by banks, all those things. But we decided to diversify ourselves amidst the fear and uncertainty of what was going on. And like we say in the military, the VUCA environments,
Yeah,
volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous.
Right.
And so what we did was we learned so much about digital marketing and media that we decided to start a small digital marketing agency,
Right.
just as an offshoot and an alternative revenue stream
Right.
to the first company. So we borrowed $100,000 from that business to start the new business. We gave those shareholders equal common stock shares in the new company. First company started shrinking, and that company took off, doubled in size every single year.
Nice.
Yeah, I just sold my shares in it in August. So
That was Internet Marketing Inc. I remember you
Yeah,
telling me. That's right
yeah.
around the time I met you. You were
Yeah.
so excited because you got that domain name and you're
yeah,
off to the races.
yeah. It and we were very blessed. I mean, I learned a lot through successes, mostly failures.
Yeah.
And, we hit the Inc. 500 list of fastest growing companies every year for about 7 years in a row. But we also learned about the dangers and nuances of rapid growth and
growing too
doing it
fast.
smartly,
Right.
not intelligently.
So how's that company doing now? What's the status?
The company's doing great. I sold my shares in August,
So
sold
you're
my
out.
half back to the company to pursue some other things.
Right. Well, cool. All right. So that brings me to leadership, right? A passionate subject for me as well. Like I love leadership. I actually was at USD myself getting my doctorate in leadership when I was mobilized to go to Iraq in 04.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were over there in 04.
Yeah,
I think probably
so.
not.
Yeah.
Were you?
No, I was
Because you were
I was
there
back.
03,
Yeah, I was
then back,
in
then
the-
you
yeah,
would have been
yeah,
over there probably in 05 or so. So I was over there in 04. And while I was there, I had all my coursework done. And I was basically dusting off my dissertation and putting the finishing touches on the project. And while I was there, I decided, I had like this epiphany. I said, there's no way I'm going to do this. I'm not interested in academics. And I really need to go home and focus on my business and my family. And so I think it's the only thing I've ever quit in my life. And it's still on my bucket list to go finish my damn PhD.
You didn't quit. It was a transition.
That's right. I transitioned out of it.
Never used that word.
My why changed. So when
Yeah.
your why changes, it's not a quit.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so-
It's just a shift.
that's right. It's a shift. So, and also the other thing, Brent, you could probably appreciate this, is that none of the leadership professors in the academic world, I shouldn't say none, but very few of them actually know anything about leading. And they've never led someone like in combat. So I said, I'm going to go teach people how to become better people, how to develop trust, how to maintain control and develop resiliency. And that's what SEALFIT is. So SEALFIT at its core, people think it's a fitness company. No, it's a leadership character development company.
Right.
And that's where Unreal Mind came from. So very cool. So you started taking point and you want to develop leadership and you're working with corporate clients now. And how's that looking?
It was kind of a funny transition about 5 years ago in December 2012. I just started writing weekly columns for Forbes and for Inc.com, but not about marketing, about leadership. And the column was called From the Battlefield to the Boardroom. And, I write every week. I still do.
I think Basu has done some articles for that. Or is that your
Jeff
column?
Boss has, and some other guys. I don't know if they do regular columns, but I've had these columns for years now. Cool. But one Saturday morning, I was sitting with my wife drinking coffee, opened my laptop, checked my email, and I got an email from the president of Bank of America Merrill Lynch Asia Pacific. So he's now one of my best friends. We're godparents to each other's children, but he's just a very energetic, very successful, to the borderline prodigy level in banking. Australian guy. He's only 46 today.
Nice.
And he's one of the top 4 executives in the entire global company. But he's also obsessed with special operations culture and how it applies, in the corporate world, the business world. He's super fit, does a lot of CrossFit and things like that. And he emailed me saying, I read your article, and it was actually the first article I'd ever written. Read your article, love the concepts. I would love to have you come speak at our Global Leadership Conference.
Nice.
Didn't ask if I was a speaker. Didn't ask if I had a website or videos or anything. I'm glad, because I didn't have any of that. Because I was running this other business. As the entrepreneurs we are, of course, I said,
oh, sure.
Absolutely.
I'm in.
Yeah, what's the date? Which is like 4 weeks away.
We don't learn to say no very
No,
easily.
I turned to my wife. It's like, oh, crap.
What?
I just have sort of said yes to something that I have no idea how to do. Going back to our fake it till we make it.
Right.
And went out, developed a presentation, of course, just like you would. I trained and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed.
Nice.
Hours a day, to get into practice, because I'd never really done that before.
Right.
And it's, your first time doing something like that is,
It's sketchy.
to say it's nerve-wracking.
Most people would rather jump out of a helicopter.
While burning alive. But I did it, and it was a packed schedule of evening keynotes and workshops during the day, all about leadership. They also wanted to focus on culture transformation. This was still pretty
So
new.
it wasn't just a single talk. I mean,
No,
you had to
it was
prepare a bunch of workshops.
It was, looking back, I should have charged
kidding.
way more.
Yeah.
But I didn't know
like
what to charge.
$100,000 at least.
And I didn't charge anywhere near that. But it was, it was a great brand opportunity. It was
Sure,
the first
of course, yeah.
global brand that I ever worked with in that capacity. But the topics were not just around leadership, but also around culture transformation and how to navigate that type of change, because they were still only a few years into their merger between Bank of America and Merrill Lynch. 2 very different cultures,
Right.
not just geographical cultures differences, because they're a global company, but corporate cultures.
Right.
And so that was kind of the fundamentals of what we were talking about in the workshops and facilitated discussions. Long story short, it went really well, and they bring me back every year to do Sydney, Singapore, and Hong Kong,
Nice.
and London now. And that's where I was last week. And so I leveraged that. I loved doing it. I realized I had a passion for it and an affinity for it. And so I leveraged that opportunity to get other opportunities and more. So I've been doubling the frequency of speaking and consulting every year since then, which of course also was taking me away from my other business. So from a executive and fiduciary responsibility standpoint, it was time for me to pursue this passion and, let the other leaders in that organization take the reins and do what they need to do while I, go do this.
Right. So what's the overarching theme? I understand what taking point is, but explain it for the audience what taking point means. And like, if you were to boil down, or maybe the way we look at this is you got a book coming out by that name, Taking Point, in February, and you probably have like a series of principles. So you want to talk about some of those?
Sure. And you and I are very aligned on our philosophies around these principles as they apply to someone's personal life, their professional life, or an organization or a team as a whole. But the book is not just just a leadership book. It's a prescriptive model with 10 specific principles. The subtitle is 10 Principles for Leading Through Change. Right. Good. So, as you know, today
sort of relevant these days.
Yeah, today now more than ever. Any organization of any size across the globe is facing the need for almost constant transformation. Think about it from a military context. In this post 9/11 reality we're in, the military, not just the SEAL teams, but the military as a whole, had to transition from we went into these conflicts as what you might think of as a hierarchical, top-down, slow-moving 20th century organization.
20th century direct action force,
And we had to transition not just our systems and processes, but our culture. I mean, you can imagine how hard that is in the military, of course, as you know, but transition our mindset and our culture to think differently, to become a modern 21st century organization, to break down the vertical silos, the horizontal silos that impede communication flow, impede information sharing, because we had to move at the speed of war to fight a more decentralized enemy. And to fight a decentralized enemy, we had to decentralize our controls as well. And so that's kind of the foundation of what this is applied to business. So the principle is having to do with first understanding your existing organizational culture. And does it even align with your strategy and what you're trying to achieve? And how do you audit that culture and leverage the positive aspects of the culture to meet specific objectives? In this context, objectives for transforming the business to become something better, whatever that is. The next principle is about trust, learning how to measure and improve trust, within internally and externally within an organization.
And how do you do that? Or how do you recommend doing it?
There's a lot of tools to do it, but a lot of it is first also kind of doing a diagnostic analysis on the existing levels of trust. And you can see that through behaviors. You can see that through even things like surveys. But you could just see it by other things. Is there real collaboration within the organization? Or is it a fake thing that we just talk about? Or are there structures that impede true collaboration? Are we sharing information across departments, across divisions? Or is everybody kind of in their bunker, in their silo, protecting themselves as opposed to pursuing something bigger than themselves, the ultimate mission, so to speak.
Risking their comfort zone for the team.
Exactly.
And the mission.
And pushing themselves outside their comfort zone. Now, a lot of companies, their structures impede that because they don't reward that type of behavior. Senior leadership doesn't exhibit that behavior. And that goes into another principle about accountability. Same thing, but a different word is how accountable are we as an organization? In the SEAL teams, accountability essentially starts on day one of training. Are we?
You got to take extreme ownership.
Yes, you do. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Plug. And it's, but again, it's in a lot of my favorite business books are about transitioning your culture to be one that's founded on the principle of accountability, and not just that as a fun buzzword, but what are the measurable financial returns when you focus not just on a set of financials, but improving accountability and getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and building that high performance team, just like we do, just like we spend months and millions of dollars in the SEAL teams.
So I assume you employed these principles, whether you knew it or not, at Internet Marketing Inc.
I sometimes did it well, and I sometimes did it poorly.
That's funny. The reason I asked that kind of cheekily is that, I'm a great trainer, and my books have been well received, but some of the principles I need to look back in my own organization.
Well, my wife throws this stuff in my face all the time. She's like, "You're not controlling your emotions. You're not being accountable. Where's the trust?"
I'm teaching other people how to do this stuff.
But no, it's a good question because, and I'm very transparent about this in the book, that a lot of my quote unquote wisdom comes from a series of pretty costly mistakes. As you know, in business, every mistake has a both hard and soft cost, every single time. Whether it's hiring the wrong people or aligning yourself with the wrong customer or letting a culture just haphazardly come together as opposed to designing that culture from day one. I got most of that stuff wrong and then had to go back and uneff it, for the following years. But, so when I talk about it, I sound super smart, but mostly it's just because I've screwed it up a lot.
That's interesting. So of the 10 principles, is there like a dominant one or like a first premise kind of one that must precede all the ones
that the book in the part 2 is about. Part 1 is about building a change culture. Part 2 is about preparing for the change battle. There's things in there about communicating the vision consistently and regularly throughout the process and engaging everybody in the organization to help push the mission forward. But part 3 is really more about winning the change fight. So what is the long-term part? How, and these, even though the principles are outlined sort of in a chronological order, they're not necessarily meant to be followed in that way. Because chapter 9 and 10, in my opinion, are the most important. They're about discipline and resiliency.
Nice.
Now, of course, there has to be discipline at the beginning and throughout an organization, whether they're trying to transform or just achieve certain business objectives. But the ones that will, because all of my research and studies and experiences in my own companies, they're literally 70% of most organizational change efforts fail due to either initial things where the culture doesn't align with the strategy, low levels of trust, accountability, or you can gain some significant momentum, but then in the long haul, competing priorities seep in, other opportunities come along, and even the senior leaders start to lose sight of the mission and the vision of what they're trying to accomplish because they lack discipline. And they also lack resiliency because change fatigue, just like battle fatigue, change fatigue sets in. People get exhausted. Most of these efforts take twice as long and cost twice as much as anybody initially anticipates. So you can imagine people start to lose heart. Even the early adopters, who are sort of your transformation evangelists, start to question, well, are we going to see this thing through to the end? And then the naysayers, who are telling you this isn't going to work, this is just, we've seen this before, they start being the I told you so.
Another one of his harebrained ideas.
And they're empowered. Another one of them stupid ideas that never got panned out. So, and those people can be very influential people in the company sometimes. And so without discipline and without also simultaneously building a resilient organization, just like think of it in special operations, we build resilient people because resilient teams need to be made up of resilient people who they prepare for change, they're ready for it, we anticipate it, and it's that difference between planning and preparation. Plans are great, but plans are going to change. One of my favorite quotes is, no plans survives first contact with the enemy. Exactly. And so that's the whole philosophy behind, in businesses, especially now.
My experience from the SEALs, and it's to this day, I feel this way, that not only do we plan and anticipate change, but we actually eagerly embrace it. Because that's where the lessons are. That's where the challenge is, and that's where the growth comes from. And anytime, things get to the status quo for too long, the team guy gets a little itchy and twitchy. They're like, bring it on. What's happening? Where's the change? Where's the challenge? Boredom sets in. So getting that into an organization has got to be a real challenge, for people who haven't been trained in the SEAL mindset. So how do you do that? Like, how do you
I think I do it similar to the way that you do it through Unbeatable Mind and SEAL Fit, and you're transitioning mindsets. Because a lot of organizations we need to train for these new things that we're going to doing, the new processes, new systems. They don't train for mindset transformation. They don't train for behavioral transformation. And then even if those mindsets start to shift, they oftentimes don't even reward those new behaviors. And so that will become a temporary thing. So it's really, and that's all in part 2, it's all about mindset transformation, not just in the senior leaders, but senior leaders first have to transform their mindset to adopt the new vision and believe in the mission before they can get anybody else to follow them into battle, so to speak.
And how do you recommend that mindset gets changed or transformed? I mean, do you have specific ideas for, besides, hey, this is the new vision and we're bought into it, now let's believe it? I mean, what specific steps do you recommend to train or to transform mindset?
It's obviously initially, senior leaders have to first understand what they're trying to accomplish and be totally aligned in how to get there. A lack of alignment will destroy, well, frankly, the achievement of any goal in any organization. I've seen it in other companies. So when there's lack of alignment at the very top, a lot of bad things follow. You will not transition anybody's mindset because the leaders haven't transitioned theirs and they're not aligned in what the ultimate mission and vision are.
Right.
They haven't defined their why. They don't understand the true purpose behind what they're doing. It just seems like the new flavor of the month. We got to go in this direction. And some people are like, yeah, sure, whether it's at the board level or C level or EP level, some people will be bought into that and start transitioning the way they think about the reality around them and where they're headed and how to get there. And others will say, we'll see how this goes.
Right.
Probably not going to work.
Yeah.
But when that happens, it's very difficult to engage other potential evangelists within the organization or change agents or whatever we want to call them to adopt that new vision and communicate it regularly and consistently throughout the organization. That's how you transition mindsets. If you start with alignment at the top and you have the desired, you can break it down. One of my favorite books about accountability also breaks these things down into 4 pillars. You have the new vision you have your existing results and your desired results. Desired results are what the new vision is trying to achieve.
Right.
Below that are the actions that people need to take to achieve those desired results. But then when you get into the interesting part is below that is what are the mindsets and beliefs that people need to embody and truly have authentically, not just say they do, to take the action to get the result.
Right.
And below that are what are the cultural experiences we're creating in the organization that help instill those beliefs.
Right.
And how often are we doing that? And that's where mindset transformation starts to happen.
Interesting.
But again, like anything else, it's got to start at the top.
Right.
And if you can't achieve that mindset shift and alignment amongst everybody in senior leadership teams, typically, again, that's why most of these types of efforts fail. And why a lot of businesses fail. That's why 90% of startups fail.
Right.
So
that's cool. So what is your why? Like, what's your vision for the future and how you're going to impact the world?
Well, one of the reasons that I, sold my shares in my last company and have been really pursuing this passion is because I realized that I'm very passionate about, and again, when I speak, what I write about, this is not about me getting up there and talking about how cool it is to be a team guy.
Yeah.
We got plenty of that. I like to motivate and inspire, whether it's, someone from a personal perspective or from a professional perspective, but it's really about, teaching and educating people, leaders, managers, but I'm talking about leaders and managers, from the top to bottom throughout the entire organization, and help them learn how to improve their leadership and management style, understand the differences between the disciplines of leadership and management, 2 different things, understand how to align culture with strategy, understand how to improve trust and accountability, kind of take on sort of that seal fit mindset, that unbeatable mindset to not think about all the obstacles and barriers that are in their way, but have a more future thinking mindset, and how are we going to get there? An opportunistic mindset.
Right.
That's what I wrote an article last week and another one today about resiliency and, the pillars of resilient organizations. And some of them are those things. They, to your point earlier, they're well prepared for change. They embrace change. They want it. And they have systems and structures of not top-down hierarchical mechanisms from a leadership standpoint, but basically ecosystems and networks, peer networks of people, and leadership is disseminated down the chain of command more fluidly. And then, of course, they actually empower those people. We throw that word around a lot. It's not usually an authentic thing in companies, but because they also give them the resources to succeed.
Right.
So I'm very passionate about that. I'm also, another part of my why is also to use the things I've done and things I've learned and some of the influence that I hopefully will continue to gain to give back. So the two passions of mine under that why umbrella are SEAL Family Foundation. That one specifically because I'm on the executive board.
Nice.
We raise, millions of dollars a year
Nice.
And disseminate it very quickly to the families in need, whether that be through the families of some of our fallen or injured brothers, or scholarships, or other types of family-oriented programs.
Nice.
But then also, my family is also the ambassador family for March of Dimes, which is one of the oldest. March of Dimes it's one of the oldest and largest charities that's focused on research around premature birth and healthy pregnancies.
No kidding.
So it's funny, we've learned how to
you
use a
on it
3D
because of
scanner to build a heart, but we don't know what causes premature birth.
Right. Are you on this because of an experience with that?
Yes. So, and it's funny because I'll give a keynote presentation and somebody will ask, sometimes somebody will put me aside, what was the hardest part of that? Or what's the toughest thing you've been through in your life? Assuming that I'm going to tell them some horrid combat story, or Buds or Hell Week. It was actually the day we found out that our daughter had a birth defect. So our 3.5-year-old daughter, Parker Rose, and it's a horrible process. First, you get a call from the Fetal and Genetics Center.
Good Lord.
The call you don't want to get,
Right.
and they're like, you need to come in now. That's never a good thing.
No, that's
and
not.
so you go in, you check in, you wait in the waiting room around a bunch of other people who look devastated.
We're terrified. Yeah.
Your wife's crying, I'm quivering.
Right.
And then you go into a room, and first you meet with a grievance counselor before you even know what's going on. So, which of course magnifies the pain and fear of your unbeatable mindset is being challenged significantly.
Right.
You're getting beaten.
It's gone at
It's
this point in
gone.
time. Yeah.
And
Wow.
they tell you, well, your child has some birth defects. It could be paralysis. Your child could have passed away, brain damage, whatever. Then you go and meet with the doctor, and we found out what it was. It was something called gastroschisis. So most defects are because some part of the body has not closed or connected all the way.
Right.
So spina bifida because the spine doesn't fuse, brain damage because the skull doesn't fuse. This is where her tummy hadn't formed all the way. So all of her intestines and half of her stomach were on the outside of her body.
No kidding.
For the whole pregnancy.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So I actually touch on this story in the book about resiliency. About she's actually, despite all the warriors I know, she's the most
tough.
resilient little kid I know.
No kidding.
And so she had, long story short, it was a very stressful pregnancy. Nicole had to go in to get her fluid checked 3 times a week and throughout the whole thing.
How far into the pregnancy did they find this?
This was right after they do the initial blood work, so I think a couple months.
First trimester?
Yeah, first trimester. Yeah, towards the end of the first trimester. And so she was born, went right into surgery.
Of course.
Like literally 20 minutes in to put everything back in. But she's a healthy little girl. She had another emergency surgery a year later because she had a complication. But she's had none of the complications that a lot of gastroschisis babies have. She was in the NICU half the time. So she was in the NICU for 25 days as opposed to the average 40 days. So she's our little unbeatable mind warrior baby.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So. But that's
So you want to give back to the market.
So that's those from a giving back standpoint. Those are the two charities that are close to my heart, and why and also why I like the transition that I'm in now. I have a much more flexible schedule. Last company had not big, but we had 150 employees, and you need to be there. Yeah. Whereas now I have the flexibility to give more time to these things and also do the other things. Yeah, and the thing. Yeah.
That's cool. So you want to keep it like that, or do you see Taking Point growing into a consultancy? Or?
Yeah, the Taking Point, like a lot of speakers or consultants' books, is designed to be a prescriptive curriculum for a consultancy. That can also be, and my wife tells me this every day, because although she likes me being out of the last company, she doesn't like single parenting while I'm on the road every week. You travel a lot for this type of thing, and it's tough on mama. And so the vision is to gradually, not too quickly, but gradually use the book, and why it's full of case studies and research, and why it can be a curriculum for a consulting practice to then, of course, train other consultants and deploy them to speak for it. And also, like-minded individuals, whether they be guys from the community or, military or other types of, smart business folks out there. Yeah, and to also create a very diverse cross-functional team of consultants that could touch on different things, whether it's emotional intelligence or culture or leadership.
We just launched our first coach certification program for Unbeatable
Awesome.
Mind. Yeah.
Very cool.
We got 20 people in it. We had 100 applicants.
Yeah. How do you create a certification program?
It's a long conversation, probably.
Okay.
But we aligned ourselves with the International Coaching Federation.
Nice.
And they have an accreditation process, and so we're meeting their standards. So we're accredited ICF, and I could give you the details.
Congrats, that's awesome.
And so, but
I should go through your course.
Yeah,
Seriously.
Crawl, walk, run. First year we got 20 people, and they're our guinea pigs, and they know it. And and our stuff is, it's not a simple thing to teach what we teach, because we're doing integrated development, which is vertical development. We're trying to vertically develop leaders, and then eventually that'll go into the organizational space. We're kind of focused on the individual really right now. And vertical development is a relatively new field. Right. So we're actually trying to evolve consciousness in the individuals. And my why is to eventually, to have that evolve global consciousness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One person at a time.
Yeah.
Like McCraven's speech, if we can get
Yeah.
10,000 people evolved, then those 10,000 people will get 10,000 people and on.
Exactly.
And pretty soon
That's
you
awesome.
cover the club. So I think it'd be fun. We'll have some conversations, but there's probably some collaborative stuff we can do, either in philanthropy or in leadership development.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to get my my client, the Toronto Raptors, down here because
Oh, right.
they
That's right.
want to put their guys through some seal fit
We
magic.
just did some work with the Flyers.
Nice.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
It went fantastic.
Yeah.
They absolutely loved it. It was with their development team.
Yeah.
And what do you do? We're going to wrap this thing up pretty soon.
Yep.
But what do you do when you're not traveling, writing, speaking, which is probably all the time? Do you have a hobby, or what do you do?
Because I have 2 of my children are under 3 or under 3.5.
Being a father.
Being a father is the top priority as per my priority list and my wife's.
Yeah.
Fitness. I just got to fit it in, when and where I can, as much as I can.
You have a home gym, or just?
Yeah. Well, we live in a gated community in Rancho Santa Fe, and there's a big community center with an awesome gym there.
Oh, cool.
But I also have a home gym too, so it depends on when I'm fitting it in. That's what I'm going to do right after this.
You like to do like workouts like 100 back squats with every minute on the minute?
No.
5 4.
No, I don't. That was the one and only time I've ever done that. That's why I've never done it again. No, I like to strength training, but try and still keep distance running, distance swimming, open water swimming.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love getting on the ocean.
Yeah,
it's very
it's
therapeutic.
time consuming, but it's super therapeutic. I've never felt better. When I got out and was in grad school and then working as an entrepreneur, one of our investors was a former frogman from the Vietnam era.
Oh, no kidding.
He knew my dad in college. They swam together, and then he went to Merrill Lynch. Been there ever since. He retired, but he also, he was an all-American swimmer, so he loved. Much to my chagrin, he loved to swim in the cove at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning.
And we're the swim buddy.
Yeah, and he wanted a swim buddy there every morning. But he invested in my company, so am I going to say no? Obviously not.
Yeah.
But it was, it's depressing getting in the water when it's dark and cold outside.
You feel
but you
like
feel
$1 million.
like $1 million, and it's the best way to start your day.
Yeah, for sure.
So those fitness mainly is the thing I try and keep up with. And other than that, it's family, and then I don't have time for much of anything else these days.
I can hear that. I can appreciate that.
Reading.
Too.
I would say reading and cooking.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All righty. So, Taking Point, the book is due out. Is there a day in February?
Yes. So it's being published by Simon & Schuster.
Right.
February 20th will be the live date. Technically speaking, it's available through my site, BrentGleesonSpeaker.com, for pre-order now. But we're not doing any big pre-order push. It's too early to do a pre-order push, but technically speaking, you can pre-order.
Would you be able to send me a pre-copy or parts of it?
Yes.
And would you be open to me riffing on some of the principles? On
absolutely.
a podcast?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Or tearing them apart. Actually, no, please don't do that.
I'll give you my perspective on.
We love transparency.
No,
in the SEAL
because
teams.
I think everyone listening would really, because everyone on this, we're all professionals. Everyone who listens to this podcast is a professional, and I think everyone, including myself, is fascinated with the subject of leadership. And I've been studying SEAL principles for leadership development, just like you have, for years. But
you probably longer than anyone.
Yeah, probably. But I consider myself a neophyte still when it comes to, human nature. Like, it is vast. Like, the potential that we have is vast. Everyone's different. There's so many different ways that consciousness works and that motivation works. And so, you know what I mean? I'm all about other team guys starting to really, think this stuff, because I was alone for a little while. Not 100%, but when it comes to like really thinking about character development.
Thinking about it, to your point, from a vertical development standpoint, nobody's really doing that.
Nobody's doing
Especially most organizations, they invest in what would essentially be management development. It's not real leadership development, nor is it the type of leadership development that modern 21st century organization. It's not going to work.
Yeah,
especially
I think I haven't mentioned this publicly, but Reader's Digest, who published The Way of the SEAL, it's now going into its 5th year. So next year is the 5th year anniversary. So they came to me and said, hey, we want you to do a 5th anniversary edition and focus on leading in accelerating time.
So you're going to add a couple chapters?
I'm adding 2 chapters.
Nice.
One, leading in accelerating times. We're going to go through VUCA and talk about how to deal with volatility and complexity. And the other on building lead teams. So it's right in sync with what you're doing.
Perfect.
And then the nice thing was I actually got to edit the book. Because, once you put a book out by a publisher, it's like, you're done.
It's done.
You're done.
Yeah.
But my Unbeatable Mind book is self-published, so I've edited it 3 times. And I'm about to do it again next year.
Yeah.
And I'm working on a leadership version and a teen version, TEEN, for young adults.
Nice.
And that's self-published, so you can go in there and tweak it anytime you want, which is kind of nice.
That's great.
Yeah. But it was really,
it's
kind of a nice, it is kind of scary, yeah. But it's nice to be able to go back and to update a book. And I've actually changing out some stories that aren't relevant. And I've taken a lot of references out to like SEAL Fit and Unbeatable Mind, because it sounded a lot like a big marketing pitch,
Well,
which it was. But
which, of course it was back then.
Of course it was.
But yeah, no, that I'm
to make it more credible and
I'm
adding
excited
some
to see that.
research.
I'm excited to get your take, and I wouldn't be shocked if we're aligned on a lot of those
I'm sure
philosophies.
We are. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming down here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's good to see you again, brother.
Really appreciate it. Good luck with everything, and
Thank you.
we'll see you around.
All right.
All right, folks, that's it. Thanks for your time. We don't take it lightly. We know you're busy. Unbeatable Mind podcast is available pretty much anywhere you can get a podcast now, but that's fairly recent. So if you're a Google guy or girl, then it's available on Android. It's on our website, of course, has all those details. And if you're not on our website or on our email list, please go to unbeatablemindcom/podcast, because we have a lot of cool things. We send the podcast out with special offers by email every week. So you certainly would see that, and then you see everything else that we do. We have a lot of, early bird specials for our events and stuff. So you only see that if you're on the email list. So go check it out. Thanks again. Train hard, stay focused. Hoo-yah. Divine out. Hey, this is Mark Divine. Thanks very much for watching the Unbeatable Mind podcast on YouTube. You can also find the podcast at iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, and unbeatablemind.com/podcast. Be sure to check out the new episode released every week. Hoo-yah.